The first thing Richard Wright shows you in Native Son is a rat, not a metaphor, not a symbol, not yet. Just a rat, scurrying across the floor of a one-room apartment on the south side of Chicago, where a mother and her children are screaming and climbing on the furniture. 17-year-old Bigger Thomas corners it and kills it. He holds the dead rat up by the tail in front of his sister's face until she screams harder. It's a cruel and ugly scene. So why did Wright start with this? Wright is doing something precise here. He tells us before anything else happens, before any crime is committed, before we've had the chance to decide how we feel about him, this is not going to be a comfortable read. Bigger is not going to charm us. He is not going to make it easy. And that is entirely deliberately the point. Native Son was published in 1940, and it sold 250,000 copies in its first month. It was a sensation. It was also almost immediately misunderstood. Readers and critics wanted to place it in a tradition they already knew, the protest novel. The book that holds up black suffering and says to a white audience, look, feel, change your mind. The book that asks for sympathy. Think Uncle Tom's Cabin. Think the narrative tradition of appealing to the humanity of the oppressor by presenting the oppressed as legible, gentle, deserving. Wright was doing something else entirely. And to understand what, you have to sit with the thing that makes most readers deeply uncomfortable. Bigger Thomas is not a sympathetic character. He is violent before the novel's central crime. He is cruel to Bessie, the woman who loves him. He is contemptuous of his family. He lies. He manipulates. He feels at times something close to pleasure in his own monstrousness. Wright does not soften this. He does not explain it away. He puts you inside Bigger's head, and he makes you stay there. So, why does Wright do this? To understand Wright's choice, you have to understand what he was pushing back against. There is a tradition in American literature and in American political life of what you might call the politics of respectability through representation. The idea that the way to change minds is to show people a version of the marginalized that is unthreatening, sympathetic, safe. A character white audiences could love without feeling implicated, without feeling accused. Wright thought this was a trap. In his essay, How Bigger Was Born, which he wrote as a companion to the novel, Wright is explicit. He says he wanted to create a character so far beyond the pale of easy sympathy that the reader could not escape into comfort. He did not want you to feel sorry for Bigger and move on. He wanted you to feel responsible for Bigger. Those are completely different experiences. Feeling sorry lets you off the hook. You grieve. You close the book. You remain unchanged. Feeling responsible means the book has accused you of something, and you have to decide if the accusation is true. Let's go back to that rat. Because Wright doesn't just use it as a shock opening and move on. The rat is doing structural work across the entire novel. Track what happens by the end of the book. Bigger is cornered on a rooftop in the snow, surrounded by an armed mob, water hoses trained on him, a crowd screaming below for his death. The language Wright uses, the physical geometry of the scene, the way the net closes around him, it mirrors the opening. Bigger is the rat now. And the people hunting him are not villains. They are ordinary. They are us. That's the trap Wright set on page 1. And here is what makes it devastating. Wright makes Bigger hard to love so that you cannot blame his death on his character. If you loved Bigger, if he were gentle and wrongly accused, you could mourn him as an exception. a good person destroyed by a bad system. But Bigger is not a good person by the standards the novel holds up, and Wright insists his death is still an atrocity. The system that kills him does not kill him because he is bad. It kills him because it was always going to kill him. The crime almost doesn't matter. The outcome was written before the first page. That is a far more radical argument than any sympathetic protagonist could make. Here is what Wright does that almost no one was doing in 1940. He gives Bigger Thomas a complete inner life. Not a noble one, not a beautiful one, a real one, contradictory, frightened, rageful, occasionally perceptive in ways that are almost unbearable to read. After Mary Dalton's death, Bigger doesn't collapse in guilt. He feels for the first time a kind of terrible clarity, a sense that he has finally done something, that he exists as a cause in the world rather than just an effect. Wright spends real time in this feeling. He does not rush past it or condemn it editorially. He lets you sit in it with Bigger. And that is the move that disturbs readers most, because Wright is not saying the feeling is good. He is saying the feeling is logical. A person who has been denied agency, denied interiority, denied the basic acknowledgement of being a full human being, that person's psychology will not look like the psychology of someone who was given those things. Bigger was not raised. He was processed. And Wright is asking you to trace the line from the processing to the psychology without flinching away. The discomfort you feel reading those pages is not an accident. It is the point. By Book 3, Fate, Wright makes his structure explicit. Bigger is on trial. But so is everyone else in the room. So are you. Boris Max, Bigger's lawyer, makes an argument that the court cannot hear, not because it's illogical, but because hearing it would require the system to indict itself. He argues that Bigger Thomas is not an aberration. He is a product. That everything Bigger did was the predictable output of a machine that the people in that courtroom built and maintain. The jury ignores it. The judge ignores it. The crowd outside calls for blood. And Wright's final move, the thing that makes the book endure, is that he does not resolve this. Bigger dies without being fully understood by anyone in the novel. Jan comes close. Max comes close, but not close enough, and too late. You, the reader, are the only one who has been inside Bigger's head the whole time. You are the only one with the full picture. And Wright has spent 400 pages making sure that picture is complicated enough that you cannot reduce it to a verdict. That is what the unsympathetic protagonist was for. Not to punish you, not to shock you, to position you. Because a book that makes you love Bigger asks for your pity. A book that makes you understand Bigger, fully, uncomfortably, without the cushion of easy sympathy, asks for your reckoning. Wright said once that he wanted Native Son to be so hard and deep that readers would have to face it without the comfort of tears. He succeeded. The book doesn't let you cry and feel better. It doesn't offer the catharsis of a wrong being righted or a good person vindicated. What it offers is a mirror, one that reflects not just a system, but the people inside it, including the ones who think they're on the right side. The rat in the first scene dies in one page. Bigger Thomas takes 400 more. But Wright sets up the same geometry, the same inevitability, the same question. Who built the room where this had to happen? And who's still building it?